really, I called them famous, but really special guest. Obviously, we're in their headquarters, as you can see the cool logo behind me. And in Seattle, I was so fortunate to be part of the Lola conference this past couple days. And today I got a chance to sit with Matt from his really, really extremely busy schedule. But I wanted people to understand why Financial Savvy Minutes in 20 minutes is so important. It's because we need at least a few minutes out of the day that we're learning something about money, learning about something that we all have challenges, and that we can also learn from other people's mistakes, but more importantly, be inspired by their stories. And Matt was one that definitely resonated with me. And this is the first time we actually got to meet, so it's kind of great when you see people doing amazing things in our community, and then you're like, hey, this is you in real life. So first of all, thank you, Matt, for being a part of this. And if we can just start off right off the bat, tell us a little bit why you decided when to start Remitly, but if there was something that really made you think, I need to do something different for our community.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Natalie, and thanks for being here. I'm a huge fan of the show. Starting Remitly really started from my own personal experience. I grew up in Idaho, but I think partially because of that, my parents really valued travel. So I've traveled to close to 100 countries, seen a lot of different cultures, a lot of different people. And on the receive side, where people send money to, remittances to, just seeing how far that money went in people's lives was profound for me. I mean, and I think a lot of our customers know that, a lot of your viewers know that, and then to get to know our customers in the U.S., the sacrifice they make, it is unbelievably inspiring. And so it was one of these businesses where not only did I feel like we could build a very large business, but it's a business that could do a lot of good for the world as well.
Yes, absolutely. I think one of the first people that I met through your company started talking about what you're doing, I remember getting emotional because I was thinking, I grew up in these neighborhoods, I still live in these neighborhoods where we're targeted by, I'm not even going to mention the other names of other companies that really overcharge and don't understand how $20 can mean a lot to someone else in another country, especially when there's our family members or friends that are struggling. And you've been to so many countries. I think that really does show a lot of people, and they're like, that's why travel is so important, right? Because you see what privileges we have here, what opportunities we have here, but how we can also give back to those that really need it. That's one of the reasons why I love this company as well too. But 100 countries is amazing, and obviously as a young person going through all these different cultures, not everyone catches on to this. Did you ever find a place, especially when you were starting, because I think this is something people need to hear. There's a lot of listeners that are in their maybe fifth year of their own business, and there's moments that they want to quit. And you've gone through so much growth. I mean, this is for those that are watching on the video, the space is incredible. It's such a creative space, a beautiful building. But I'm sure there was moments where you're kind of like, can we even move into this location? Can we expand? Can you maybe share a little bit about that journey for you?
Oh yeah, I mean, it's been a journey. We're 1,000 people worldwide now, but it started with really three co-founders, early days. And the early startups always have pivots along the way, and those are what the challenges are going to be tied to. And for us, it was all about how do we really transform and improve the lives of folks sending money back home. But the solution to that really changed along the way through some of those challenges. So the early days, I thought, hey, let's just come up with like a search engine for remittances, not have to get all the money transmission licenses, not have to build out all the infrastructure. But it turned out that that there wasn't a business to be built there. It's a very hard business. So even before we built a full product for that, by talking to customers, by looking at other businesses that have not succeeded in the space, we pivoted there. Another example is, Western Union's been around 160 years, and so what's different now is that people not only have smartphones, but they're trusting smartphones for financial services. And so we thought that not only on the send side, so that's how our product works, customers link their bank account or debit card, that very much is shifting digital. On the receive side, we thought people would want money to mobile wallets. In the Philippines specifically, where we started, my co-founder and I went to the Philippines. We realized that nobody wanted money into mobile wallets. I mean, people want cash in a lot of the countries that we operate in, and that shift to digital is going to take longer. It depends on the country. But we went through a big pivot there because the whole business idea was mobile to mobile, and right now it's mobile to a wide range of disbursement options because, again, most importantly, we talked to customers, we understood what they need, what they wanted, but there were moments, that trip to the Philippines in 2011, where it was like, the whole pitch, the whole premise was like, we're gonna send money to mobile wallets, and then we saw nobody was using them.
I think that's that obviously definitely resonates with me because, I mean, being Latina American, first of all, too, it's kind of like you assume that everyone has the phone, right? And so, but nowadays, and I learned this at Hispanic, so this is how I learned about your company there. And I remember thinking, well, most Latinos, we were social before social media happened.
Yep.
Meaning we were always calling each other, talking to our aunts in another place, another country, and understanding that our grandmas, our aunts already had Facebook or had all these other digital things on their phone, that we were advancing in that direction. And now hearing you say that, like, yeah, that's right. In other countries, it's not accessible, or maybe the traceable thing, or they're afraid that someone might have access to it. So that's pretty important to understand that you went through, like, well, we have to be niche in different countries. And as a business owner or someone that's just kind of trying to navigate, we forget that every culture has not only their own identity, but their own needs. And I think that's really cool that you saw that. And I'm sure that was pretty scary, because you're like, okay, change it up, right?
Totally. And I think that, I mean, everything I've learned has been via amazing mentors and people I've surrounded myself with. But the piece of advice that I always come back to is, like, don't fall in love with a product, a solution. Fall in love with a problem for customers that you're trying to solve, and then pivot and adjust the solution. And I think that was liberating, because I wasn't like, all right, the company's going to fail because our product is going to look totally different.
Right.
The company's going to succeed because we're listening to customers and we're adjusting the product to meet customers' needs.
I love that. For me, it was that I remember people assume because I'm known as financially Latina, they're like, you just cater Latinos. I was like, no, I cater for people that are dealing with student debt. I'm catering for people that have other families in different countries, different cultures. And it's that you just said, you just have to be able to understand. We have to be able to pivot when we need to. I wanted to ask you the question I always ask everyone on the episode. Do you remember the first time that you got paid, whether it was cash or a check, that made you think, one, you're the entrepreneur already, but was it different than the 9 to 5? Can you remember that moment?
Yeah, it was in high school. It's going to make me sound like I'm very old, but back in high school, when you bought a plane ticket, the plane ticket had to be physically delivered. Like, there wasn't, and so I was like a courier, and I would physically deliver plane tickets for people that had bought them in Boise, Idaho. And I didn't even have my driver's license yet, so I'd cruise around on my bike and like deliver those. It was an hourly, gig, and it was, it was a good lesson in terms of just like hard work, but it was so exciting to get that first paycheck. Yeah. So exciting to be able to, show what the result of my hard work was.
That's awesome. And I think it's kind of interesting to see, where if you didn't have a car, you somehow make it happen, right? You just said you're on a bike, and even today I was thinking that being in Seattle, it reminds me a lot of places where you're like, you don't really need a car if there's a lot of transportation. Yep. But when you do need a car, you're like, how do I make this work? How do you figure it out? It's like, okay, I'm gonna have to walk a little bit longer. There's a little apps, and there's so many apps now that it's so much easier. Yep. So it's kind of funny where I used to take those things for granted, where I'm like, God, it's so much easier now sometimes. Yeah. So that's a pretty cool story. I think our first ticket anywhere was probably delivered to us by someone too. Yep. And I was like, that's right. Now it's digital. Yep. So the process has changed. And obviously you probably still travel a lot too when you can. Do you ever see things that pop up out of you and be like, okay, this is something that I need to bring back to, not just to our country and our states, but how we can implement to be able to enrich each other's cultures? Yeah.
Is there, so many ideas coming to mind. Is the question, what ideas have I gotten from countries that I've traveled to bring back? I mean, we talked about how it's different in every country. Like in the Philippines, people want to receive cash. I've spent a lot of time in China. I've spent a lot of time in other Latin American countries. And I think that the way that folks in some markets use their phones for financial services is amazing, right? And I think the U.S. is shifting that way. True. But it's amazing when you look at some of these examples, like Tencent in China, Alipay in China. I mean, they've transformed financial services and provided financial services to a lot of folks that just previously haven't had them.
Yeah, I think that's actually really an important topic to really touch base on. A lot of people are still maybe traditionally going to the bank or feeling, okay, this is something I need to eventually evolve to, but that's a really good point. And sometimes I look at other countries where I'm like, we're still learning as we go. Yep. We're very far advanced than most. Yep. But it's just that you're just saying, kind of being open to the excitement of we're heading in that direction, and hopefully making it more accessible to other people, especially within our Latino community. I think that's something. It becomes one education and showing them how to download the app. Talk, even just the podcast. A lot of family members and friends are still kind of like, what's a podcast and how do I get the app, or and I think it's just kind of little by little you see the trickle, and it's so exciting. I recently had this happen where my aunt was like, oh, I showed my friends how to download an app for the podcast, and I'm like, this is exciting, and this is like my elderly grand aunt, but to see that they're also getting this valuable information. And for me, switching, doing bilingual content in this podcast is also crucial. So even when I talk to people, I'm like, you might not speak Spanish, but trust me, your information is so crucial, and there's people that are learning the language that's why they tune in. So it's really cool that we see this transformation that comes from it.
The other example that came to mind too, which is more about just like life than it was technology, was I was traveling in, I don't know why this trip always sticks with me, but I was traveling in Lake Titicaca in Peru, and there were these islands called the Floating Islands. I don't know if you've heard of them.
No, but I haven't.
They're basically islands that are made out of reeds. I think it goes back to some battle or some war that happened, and so folks fled to the islands. And then they've just made their life continuing to build and rebuild these islands that are made out of reeds. And so now they're very touristy, where people go out, they buy things. It's tourism, it's a great like source of income for folks on these islands.
Wow.
But it felt very touristy. And so at the time, my Spanish was much better. My Spanish is horrible now. But I started chatting with the folks who were selling things.
We don't practice it as much.
I started chatting with these folks who were selling things, and just get to know them. And at some point, either I asked or they invited me there. I was there with my family. My parents, my brother, I was younger, and they were like, well, why don't you stay with us tonight? And so I slept I was so fascinated with like, what do folks do in this very distant place from what I was used to? And I just wanted to get to know them as humans. And so I stayed with them, stayed on the floor of the schoolhouse, but for dinner we had like a very traditional fish that they had caught from the lake and rice. But what we did was we watched, they had just gotten power from solar power, and they had an antenna so they could watch whatever was on the air, and we watched like American reality TV and subtitles in Spanish, and there was just this lesson of like how small is the world. And then the next day they gave me a boat ride back, and I was like, can I pay you for dinner? Can I pay you? And they were like, absolutely not, you are a guest. And both the how small the world is, as well as just like generosity from individuals who have very little, has like always stuck with me. And that's one of many examples, but I just feel so lucky I've gotten to meet and really get to know people like that. It's taught me so much about life.
It really is, and you see that how that one person, the hospitality that you receive from these people. And I know you guys do so much, especially with the orphanage and the places that you help out and nonprofits. And I think that's something that resonates with every single person in that community. Be like, oh my gosh, someone I don't know would cook for me, and and I still when you said that show, I'm like, I remember in Spain watching Friends in Spanish, and a lot of the lingo where I'm like, how did they translate into something like, how are they supposed to get that reference? It was still funny, but it was just kind of that whole like, this is what people look forward to. And my cousins in El Salvador, they're like, what does this mean? Because we hear this often on Friends. I'm like, it's just kind of that. It's interesting how small the world really can be.
Totally.
And it's wonderful to see how we can communicate. Before we end, can you tell us maybe a few books or resources or your other podcasts that you like listening to? And it doesn't have to necessarily be about money, but have allowed you to keep motivated in growing the company and growing you as a person too.
Yeah, it's a good question. This is more, I think, applicable to kind of like tech companies, but there's a book called The Hard Thing About Hard Things by Ben Horowitz. And it's organized into different blogs. It's basically a collection of his blogs. So you can say, hey, here's for this specific challenge, how to kind of work through that. That's the one that comes to mind that I look at very frequently. And then, I listen to a variety of podcasts, but I'm a huge fan of yours.
Okay, well, thank you. I appreciate that. And it's funny, Podcast Moment just happened this past week. We have FinCon coming up, and there's all these other conferences that are shining light on all these many podcasts that are out there. And it means a lot to me hearing that from you, because it's kind of I didn't decide to start a podcast like most people, like I'm going to be a podcaster. For me, it was just kind of like when I would do these interviews with other people, they'd be like, we need to do a follow-up, and can you come up with that question? I'm like, I might as well just start giving that information. And meeting people like you, like I feel that's my privilege. I feel like I have such an opportunity to share light on people like you that are doing so much for our communities. And I'm like, people probably will never have the opportunity to have that one-on-one with them. And when I meet these people, I'm like, let me just ask you that one question I know these people are wanting to know. And so thank you so much for saying that. And it's wonderful to see the growth that comes from it. And then other people, like, I just recently got an email from someone that said they started a financially savvy undocu for undocumented.
That's awesome.
And I've never met them, and they sent me this message, and I'm like, wow, and it's kind of that whole, it trickles. And for me, when I meet companies like yours, where I'm like, wow, this is what allows us to grow as a community, make it a small world, you can say.
Totally.
But I appreciate sharing that. I'm going to definitely look into those, because it's always good to see what else is out there. So before we end, once again, thank you for being part of this. But if you could think of maybe one of your favorite sayings, or something that maybe always resonates, something that you've heard from your family member, or something that keeps you going every day, can you think of that quote?
Two different quotes come to mind. One is, be the change you wish to see in others, like leading by example is one. And the second is something that my grandmother always used to say, which sounds like a very basic thing, but I tell myself it frequently, especially as an entrepreneur where there are challenges along the way, and that's the simple phrase, it will all work out. And she said that a lot, and it was very Jane Oppenheimer, it was my grandmother, so that one I tell myself frequently, because there are challenges, there's huge successes like we've had at Remitly, but bumps along the way, and I think, having that perspective is very valuable.
Thank you. I'm crying now, tearing up, and people that know me, I'm a crier. But you just saying that with your my story was my grandfather's 1-year anniversary of his passing. Mm-hmm. My grandmother passed 7 months prior to that, and just that simple phrase, the privileges that we had knowing our grandparents,
yes,
and in fact, and you are your ancestors' wildest dreams come true, and that's something that I love that you just said that. I'm like, this too will pass, and I'm sure they're really proud of what we're doing, and hopefully we get to do the same with other people. So thank you so much. Stay tuned for another episode of Financially Savvy in 20 Minutes. Thank you, Matt, for his time, and we'll have all the recommendations on the show notes. So if you want people to contact you or the company, how they can get a hold of you.
Yeah, it's just Matt@remitly.com.
Awesome. Thank you. See you guys at the next one.
Thanks.